Urgent, Steelers fan, look at what just happened. Nobody saw this coming, huh? But first, make sure to subscribe to the channel because we bring you daily videos with the latest your team news. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. Steelers could close the door on Aaron Rodgers, land 134 touchdown QB instead. All of the signs for the Pittsburgh Steelers have pointed towards signing future Hall of Fame quarterback Aaron Rodgers in free agency. However, the fact that he still has not signed with the team has given reason to think that he's just not that interested. That may not be the case, but the Steelers have been very patient. They have met with Rodgers at their facilities and seen Rodgers work out with DK Metcalf, but they have still not received any form of commitment. With the 2025 NFL Draft set to begin on April 24th, there is a very real chance that Pittsburgh could close the door on the idea of signing Rodgers and pursue another option instead. Depending on how the draft falls, there could be a couple of different options at the position for the Steelers. There is a chance that Shedeur Sanders could fall to the number 21 overall pick, or that Pittsburgh could consider trading up for him. Read more. Adam Schefter provides big update on Steelers' Aaron Rodgers situation. Another player to keep an eye on could be Ole Miss signal caller Jackson Dart. Jalen Milroe is a third quarterback the Steelers have been connected to in recent days. In a new prediction, Pittsburgh would officially move on from Rodgers and draft their new quarterback of the future. Mike Renner of CBS Sports has predicted that the Steelers will end up getting Sanders at number 21 overall. He would give them a much brighter long-term outlook at the position than the team has had in years. Call it a slide if you want, but this is where most people I've talked to see Sanders as a talent, Renner wrote. The Steelers' desperation outweighs that of any other team in this area. Sanders is coming off of an impressive college football career. He played his first 2 seasons at Jackson State before finishing his last 2 with Colorado. Throughout his 4 total college seasons, Sanders completed 71% of his pass attempts for 14,347 yards, 134 touchdowns, and just 27 interceptions. Those numbers are hard to argue against when it comes to the arm talent Sanders possesses. There is a chance he could be off the board when Pittsburgh is on the clock. But if he happens to be there, it would not be shocking to see the Steelers take him without hesitation. Should Sanders land in Pittsburgh, Rodgers would be facing a much more confident Steelers team who would have more leverage in negotiations. Pausing this news just to say that if you want YouTube to keep recommending the latest, the black and gold news to you, it's very important that you leave a like on this video. Thanks. Now let's get back to the news. Steelers sign 66. Former second-round lineman, the biggest splash of the Pittsburgh Steelers offseason has already been made, making for a less exciting NFL draft and waiting game for Aaron Rodgers or an alternative veteran passer. With the DK Metcalf acquisition out of the way, the Steelers will make a series of box-checking moves. On Tuesday, Pittsburgh shored up a gap that temporarily opened up front along the offensive line. The Steelers resigned backup offensive lineman Max Scharping to a 1-year deal, which the team announced on social media. The details of his contract are not yet public, but will likely hover around the veteran minimum. In October, Pittsburgh signed Scharping off the Washington Commanders practice squad. He didn't get much action, playing just 7 snaps on offense and 3 on special teams. That marks 2 consecutive years in which Scharping has played fewer than 15 snaps. However, that isn't necessarily an indictment of his talent. He's a mediocre backup lineman. There are fewer of those than one would expect, and Scharping has a key trait that makes him more valuable: his versatility. Albeit in small doses, he's played both left tackle and center, along with his significant playing time at left and right guard. For now, Scharping can comfortably slide in along the second string with Ryan McCollum and Spencer Anderson as backup interior linemen. Without a Day 3 draft pick to add to the competition, his roster spot seems vaguely safe, although it's worth noting that the Steelers weren't in a rush to play him amid the injuries up front in 2024. If nothing else, he'll compete for a spot to be a piece of the team's depth. With experience in the AFC North, spending 2022 and 2023 with the Cincinnati Bengals, and second-round pedigree to his name, Pittsburgh has some softer reasons to keep Scharping in the building. It will take the Steelers hitting some adversity for him to get his shot, but he'll hope to make more of an impact in his age 29 season. Panthers send Pittsburgh Steelers a clear message on draft trade-up: we're ready. The Pittsburgh Steelers' love for Shedeur. Sanders has made some ask if they would trade up to land him, ultimately. If so, they might have to get in front of the new Orleans Saints, who sit at number 9 overall. Following a shoulder injury to their starting quarterback, 4-time Pro Bowler Derek Carr, the Saints are in limbo. However, if the Steelers love Sanders that much, they could move up the board to number 8, where the Carolina Panthers sit. Panthers general manager Dan Morgan made it clear the team is ready for anyone who might want to come up for Sanders or another player. "We'll be waiting if somebody wants to come up," Morgan told Rappaport. After the visit last week, Sanders rated it a 10 out of 10 and said he enjoyed getting to know head coach Mike Tomlin, a Super Bowl winning coach he compared to his dad, NFL Hall of Famer Deion Sanders. Sanders, who started at Colorado from 2023 to 2024, was once thought to likely land in the top 3 picks of the 2025 NFL Draft. However, in recent weeks, his stock has plummeted. It now appears far likelier that Sanders could be there for the Steelers at number 21. That could render a trade-up scenario useless. It seems unlikely the Steelers would move up, considering their lack of draft picks in general, but if they like Sanders that much, it is something they would have to consider. Chris Collinsworth likes Jalen Milroe to Steelers. At the 21st overall pick, with Aaron Rodgers still not in agreement with the Pittsburgh Steelers, the possibility of heading into draft night without a viable starting quarterback is becoming much more of a reality. However, there are a couple of quarterbacks that could potentially go in the first round, even to the Steelers at number 21. One player that could make sense for the Steelers is Jalen Milroe. Chris Collinsworth is a fan of his and thinks he'd make sense for Pittsburgh. Collinsworth sat down for a first-round mock draft with PFF's Dalton Wasserman and Max Chadwick on Tuesday, and he picked Milroe to go to Pittsburgh. "God, this guy Jalen Milroe, when he takes off and runs, it's like, wow," Collinsworth said. So can we talk about him in terms of that 1, 2, or 3 special plays that keep a drive alive, that turn into a field goal? Now let's turn it over to TJ Watt and the guys and let them try and win a game in the fourth quarter. It doesn't even bother me if Aaron Rodgers comes in and plays a year, and you have Milroe sort of sitting there and learning from him. A couple of quarterbacks could potentially be in play for the Pittsburgh Steelers at the 21st pick. Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart are 2 prospects who have been mentioned the most in relation to Pittsburgh. However, Jalen Milroe is another interesting name in that mix. Recently, it was reported that he accepted an invitation to the first round of the NFL Draft. The NFL usually doesn't give out invitations like that unless they have reason to believe the player will be selected in the first round. This is especially interesting in Milroe's case, as many believe he's closer to a second or third round talent. The Steelers didn't bring Milroe in for an official visit. However, they did have dinner with him before his pro day a few weeks ago. For Sata. What it's worth, the Steelers did get a glimpse of what the offense could look like under a player with Milroe's skill set early in 2024 with Justin Fields. Fields plays similarly to Jalen Milroe. Both are incredible athletes, capable of extending plays with their legs. However, each struggles with their arm and needs more time to develop that aspect of their game. Arthur Smith's offense did well, with Fields running the show in 2024. It's reasonable to think something similar could happen with Milroe in the future. However, Collinsworth's idea of winning under Milroe isn't the most promising. He talks about Milroe extending drives and relaying them into field goals while relying on the defense to win games in the fourth quarter. That's extremely similar to how the Steelers have won games over the past half-decade. Sure, the Steelers have won more than they've lost with that strategy. It's not getting them any closer to another Super Bowl, though. If Jalen Milroe is the choice, especially in the first round, Pittsburgh will hope his game develops into much more than that. He certainly has the potential. It's just about getting there. Daniel Jeremiah hints teams will look to trade back into first round. For a QB with the NFL Draft almost here, speculation is rampant about where the top prospects will land. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, some of that could be important, especially when it comes to the quarterbacks. The Steelers have done extensive homework on most of the top signal callers in this class. While that position is a weakness in this draft, it's still a huge need for the Steelers. Draft expert Daniel Jeremiah recently hinted that he believes teams will trade back up into the first round to select quarterbacks. Everybody that I've talked to and kind of looking at the situation, I would feel comfortable saying this, Jeremiah said Wednesday on his Move the Sticks podcast. I believe that Cam Ward, at this point in time, is the only quarterback who will be a team's first pick in this draft, if that makes sense. In other words, Jackson Dart, Shedeur Sanders, I think will be a team's second pick. Now, that doesn't mean they don't go in the first round. Teams could come back up and take them, but they're going to hold up the jersey and have the press conference with another player first. Then they're going to introduce the quarterback they took with their next pick. That's where it looks now a week out. Jeremiah is saying that he thinks teams will use their first-round picks on other positions and try to move up from their second-round pick back into the first round. That would seem to imply that he doesn't believe the Steelers will draft a quarterback in the first round. That doesn't necessarily mean they would pass on a player like Sanders or Dart, though. Teams could jump the Steelers if they really like either of those prospects. Based on recent information, it sounds like Sanders could be in for a draft day. Fall. It's just unclear if he'll make it to the Steelers pick at 21. Reports suggest that the Steelers would consider Sanders if he does make it to them. However, that could be why a team trades back up into the first round. It might have to get to pick 20 at the latest if it really wants Sanders. With the makeup of this quarterback class, that would make sense. Besides Cam Ward, the rest of that group seems to have too many risks to spend a top 10 pick on. However, getting a player like Dart or Sanders at 20, for instance, could be better value. That might be especially true if a team has already taken a blue-chip player near the top of the draft. Jeremiah is usually pretty trustworthy, but the draft is a fluid situation. Maybe a team like the New York Giants will draft Sanders in the top 10. Nothing is guaranteed. It does seem like the Steelers' top choices at quarterback could be off the board by the time they pick in the first round, though. Only one quarterback is out of reach for Steelers in the NFL draft. Steelers will have a shot at all but one QB in the 2025 NFL draft. The Pittsburgh Steelers find themselves in a familiar and uncomfortable position heading into the 2025 NFL draft, searching for a franchise quarterback. With no clear starter on the roster and Mason Rudolph returning as a stopgap veteran, the urgency to find a long-term solution under center is reaching a boiling point. Fortunately, the Steelers have done their homework. Pittsburgh met with 3 of the top 5 quarterback prospects on NFL Insider's Bucky Brooks' 2025 draft board. It's a sign that the franchise is seriously exploring all avenues. Those prospects include Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, and Kyle McCord, each of whom could land in different areas of the draft, providing the Steelers with several options depending on how the board falls. Shedeur Sanders, the former Colorado. Buffalo's star and Brooks' #1 quarterback prospect reportedly had an impressive meeting with the Steelers during the pre-draft process. The buzz surrounding Sanders has only intensified, with speculation swirling about a potential trade-up scenario that would allow Pittsburgh to secure his services. Sanders possesses the accuracy, leadership, and NFL bloodline that could make him a cornerstone for a franchise desperate to reclaim offensive consistency. Cam Ward, Bruce's #2 ranked quarterback, is all but off the table. Widely expected to go first overall to the Tennessee Titans, Ward has separated himself from the pack with his arm talent and ability to make plays off schedule. Jalen Milroe from Alabama was ranked 4th on the list, but he is also generating first-round buzz. If the Steelers want any chance at landing Sanders or Milroe, they'll likely need to act at or before pick number 21. The Pittsburgh Steelers could have a shot at every quarterback not named Cam Ward in the NFL draft. Unfortunately, the Pittsburgh Steelers are without a second-round pick, limiting their flexibility. That makes a blockbuster trade risky, potentially costing them vital draft capital at a time when depth and value are crucial to long-term competitiveness. That's where Dart and McCord become intriguing options. Both quarterbacks are projected to fall outside the first round, with some projections pushing them into day 2 or early day 3. The Steelers hosted both players for pre-draft visits and could land one with a third-round pick if they fall. These options wouldn't require mortgaging the future, but also come with more developmental risk. The Steelers' best-case scenario is to evaluate the board at pick 21 and determine whether any of the top quarterbacks fall into their lap. If not, using that pick to address another need, such as offensive line or cornerback, while hoping for Dart or McCord to slide into their third-round window may be the more prudent move. Ultimately, Pittsburgh's ability to land a top-tier quarterback prospect will depend on luck, patience, and roster evaluation. Whether it's Sanders, Dart, or McCord, the Steelers must find someone who can be the face of the franchise for years to come, and they must do it without betting the house. And now, Steelers fan, I want to hear from you. What's your opinion on this? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I don't know if you know this, but your opinion matters a lot for the Black and Gold. I'll be back any moment with more Steeler Nation news. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go.